We will now be discussing about the integrating EBSCO Discovery Service, Publication Finder, and OpenAthens with Koha. Our speaker is the Discovery Service Engineer of EBSCO Discovery Service in Australia. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Alvet Miranda.
Testing, check one. Yeah, I'll try that. Yeah, that's fine. Hopefully it doesn't fall. Testing, check one, two. Hi everyone, my name's Alvet Miranda. I am the Library Services Engineer Manager for EBSCO. I look after Southwest Asia, Oceania, and Africa. And I'm based in Australia, and specifically Melbourne. So it took me about, well, I think we were counting 15 hours to get here. This is my first time in the Philippines, so I apologize if I don't know the library scene in the region and I ask silly questions. But it's sort of nice to be here, and I want to thank the organizing committee for accepting my proposal, and also for the necklace. I had to wear it. I really like it, and I'm pretty sure my wife's going to love it as well when I give it to her when we get there. Now, for whatever reason, I move out of the range of the microphone and you guys can't hear me, please do let me know. I'll be conscious, but the best thing to do is, usually I ask people to raise their hands, but clench your fist. That just indicates that it's not a question, it just means you guys can't hear me. I tend to speak really soft generally. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly test to see if this thing's really working. Yeah, all right, it's working, so that's good. So my topic is Koha integration, so EDS, Publication Finder, and OpenAthens. So you guys have been at KohaCon so far. I'm pretty sure everyone in the room knows what Koha is. I found out this morning that the Asian Institute of Management has implemented EDS, and so I'm pretty sure most of you will know what EDS is as well. There are two other things in my topic, so they basically related to Publication Finder and OpenAthens. If you guys don't mind, quickly show of hands, how many of you know what Publication Finder is? Nobody, okay. All right. One, yes, of course. How many of you have heard of OpenAthens? All right, a couple of people, so that's good. I think one of the advantages of this presentation is the fact that a lot of the content is brand new. No one's ever really heard of it or even seen this information. So thank you all for being here, and I'll try and make sure this presentation is going to be as interesting as possible. And so just to start off with, I want to go into the agenda, which is, so we're looking at 3 parts, which is search, depth and breadth of content with EDS, and then we're looking at Publication Finder and OpenAthens. Well, holdings management and Publication Finder, and the last bit is of course OpenAthens. And so that'll be a bulk of my presentation for the next 45 minutes. So I'll go into the EBSCO Discovery Service to start with. And so with the EBSCO Discovery Service, a bit of history. So the Discovery Service sort of landscapes, I guess to some extent, started really early in 2009. EDS entered the market in 2010. My first interaction with Koha and EDS specifically was back in 2013. And so really the intent behind this at that time when we did the integration was to just bolt on discovery into Koha. And the intent was have the local data and the catalog and the repositories available with the EDS search and content, and essentially that made Koha your discovery front end. So that was pretty cool. And so like Koha, which originated in New Zealand, this plugin originated from that point as well. So even though I was in Australia, this was specifically a requirement for a New Zealand customer. So it wasn't by design, it was pure coincidence, and that was pretty cool, I guess. So what is Discovery specifically? Well, Discovery is a Google-like search tool. And so it's simple, fast, and efficient, and searches as many resources as possible. And so a wide range of options are available to refine those searches and enable easy access to full text or place requests. And so it really started as a search engine to start with, but as Discovery evolved, it's now sort of considered the next generation in discovery. And so you will see this image on sort of right side here. And essentially we're looking at discovery analytics tools, ebooks and books, journals, databases, ILS, IR. So there's a lot of other systems that are starting to connect to the Discovery service, and it becomes that single platform where all of these things can come together and sort of proceed from there. So in addition to all of that sort of integration, and because of that integration, we have almost 3.4 billion searchable records in EDS, content from 20,000 publishers, including over 3,000 open access publishers, over 165 apps, and 1,000 non-English profile representing 20 plus languages. And so you've got all of that breadth and all this integration that's going on. So one of the cool things we were thinking was, what if, I really like this animation, I'm not sure if you caught it, we could turn Koha into this sort of integration point. So I'm basically here to let you know that this is not a vision, this is not a dream, this is not a wish list. This is actually available. So people have been using the Discovery service with Koha for, as I mentioned, for about 3 years now. And this is what is the EDS UI, or the native interface. And this is how EDS looks. When you do searches, that's how the search results appear. These are the facets on the left. You've got filters, functionality, etc. And you've got links to full text happening within these records here, which is, and so that's searching, billions and billions of records. You then have this happening in Koha as well. And so the only place you can see the word discovery is up there. And that's customizable. So if you don't want the word discovery, you want to call it something else, you could. Technically, whoever is using Koha now is using a discovery service. So Koha has become a discovery service from this perspective. And so you will find the results, the links to full text, the limiters, facets, expanders, etc. They're all there. And if I scroll down, I will find again the EDS user interface. And I have all of the facets. They're sitting off on this side here. And again, some of the more search results, and then you can keep changing the pages. And again, if I keep scrolling down, the same thing happening within Koha as well. You'll notice that the facets are actually expanded here, so you can actually look at the details and limit your search results specifically to these areas if you want to. So these are things that have been operating for a really long time now. And so at a high level, the sort of crux of discovery is we want to make sure that the most relevant and the most current content appears right at the top. As we said, it's a Google-like search tool. And so one of the ways EDS, or EBSCO Discovery Service, is able to do this is essentially by match on subject headings, match on article titles, match on author keywords, match on keywords within abstracts, and match on keywords within full text. So all of these things essentially get a different score. And so if it's a match on subject, it's a higher score. If it's a match on title, slightly less, and so on. And eventually these things add up to create a rank or a score. The record with the highest score is what gets pushed up. And so EBSCO's sort of proud in making the algorithm open. We declare that this is how EDS does its searching. And so one of the advantages for you is that you know exactly what you're going to get because you know how EDS does the searching. And so one of the obvious benefits is that because of the relationships we have around the world with the publishers and the partners, etc., it's because of the strong relationships we've got and the working arrangements that we've managed to have with them. So what matters most in discovery? Essentially quality, depth, and breadth of data being searched, sophistication of the engine doing the searching, options for authentication and linking to full text, intuitiveness and features of the interface, levels of integration and customization, and qualification of the commitment by service staff such as myself. Now, I've managed to summarize almost 3 years of history with the Koha plugin in that one slide. If I sit and go through all of the features and functionalities, I reckon we'll probably be here the whole day and even till tomorrow. So I'm not going to do that. This is basically the wiki where the code is. So it's publicly available. It is open source. You're open to go and take a look at it. This is, as I've said, my third KohaCon. So there are similar presentations that I did at KohaCon14 and 16 as well, and the presentations are there on the GitHub site, and I encourage you to go and take a look if you're really interested in knowing what else EDS can do and what are some of the features and functionalities. But just for this specific presentation, what I want to do is touch on the recent sort of developments that have happened since KohaCon16. And so at the end of my KohaCon16 presentation, I had an interesting question that started immediately, and the person was really, really eager to ask that question. I'm not sure for how long he's been holding that in, but let me see if I can get this coordinated correctly, because I know the...
And I have the first one. You said nothing. You said nothing about translatability of the plugin. Maybe you could say a few words.
So, like the original Koha, translatability was not in scope because it was specifically designed around New Zealand customers. In saying that, that is something that's on the roadmap now, and so what we will be doing is go.
Well, I hope you get the point. I mean, I was hoping to have the video play, but that didn't work out. Essentially, the question is, what about translatability? And obviously, because of the roots from New Zealand itself, it just wasn't a factor. I have to say that it is definitely a factor now, and so we have translatability now in Discovery. It's an early version, and so essentially what it does, so you can see this sort of language changes here. There's been work that's been done into it. There's two aspects to the Discovery when it comes to translatability. One is the code and the plugin itself. The other is the Discovery service itself and the content that comes through it. So on GitHub, we have a situation where... All right, I'm back. We have a situation where we've got the translatable files. So far, we've managed to do it into five languages: English, Arabic, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian. So there is more on the way. It's just that the base platform is sort of set up and ready to go and available as well. And so one of the ways this works is essentially around the fact that if you enable the change in, say, change the language for the user, and the language changes here, essentially what you can do is the plugin has the intelligence to identify which language the user's listening or looking at, and it'll pull in the right language file in the back end. Now, installing languages in Koha is, at least in my view, requires some sort of system administrative assistance or help, and so we've continued with that trend, saying, look, you need to have some level of system administrative capability to really just install one of these plugins. When we do these changes, or when we install these language files, by default, EDS plugin will install only the default, and so that's the default there. It will not install the other files. The reason we've done this is because there's a good chance you may not like the way we've translated the English language. And so it gives you the ability to take these files, make the changes that you want. It's not a lot because, again, it's a really small plugin, but it does a lot of things. And so there's not a lot of, let's say, written text or English in there. And so you can actually make those changes yourself. So in the future, if you ever end up in a position where you have to upgrade the plugin, your file, which is there, remains. So it will not be overridden. By default, default.inc points to EN or English. Now, if you want to go and change the text for that as well, you can do that. The way the files are set up is you've got AR Arabic, so that matches AR Arabic there, ES-ES, and ES-ES. You get the point. So as long as you've matched the file name to the language pack that you're installing, there's a good chance that that language file pretty much kicks in and does essentially what you have to do. And so there's a bit of improvement that's gone along from that perspective. Like I said, this is an example of the file. You could download this yourself if you wanted to and make these changes. Just don't change this bit. You can change the ones on the right side. I would also encourage that if you do make your own, let's say, translatable file, and if you guys don't mind, please share it with us. We'd like to make it available to as many people as possible. One of the ways to do that is probably create a fork on GitHub and then just send a pull request. And so we'll review the file and add that as part of the GitHub so people can just download and use that if they want to. A couple of other enhancements that have happened is before the current version, what you would have had to do is there's the section that requires you to patch files. Now, initially it was fine. When the plugin got developed, it was okay because we had only one or few customers to deal with. We were able to manage this. But this plugin is now 3 years old, or almost about to be 3 years old. And as people around the world start using it, this becomes a bit of a problem because as you upgrade Koha, it overrides the patches, and the patches mean EDS gets disabled. So that's been a bit of a problem and a pain point. And so one of the things we really wanted to do, at least with this sort of iteration, is to make sure that there are no more patch files. So I think we've managed to do that. So basically what it means is you can download the plugin, upload the plugin into Koha, and then just enable the plugin in the plugin system, and that's it. You don't have to go into the back end and start patching files. And again, we've improved the overall sort of way this has been set up, so there's some improvements in the back end as well. This used to look a little messy, so we improved that. The other bits we've included is this thing on default search engine, so EDS, Koha, and default without EDS. The way this used to work previously was that EDS would still be running, but it would be switched on softly, which means it will still be in the background. But because of the way we've done it with no more patches, you can actually turn off the plugin completely and prevent it from interacting with any of the Koha systems if you want, Koha functionality if you want to. So that flexibility is really there. You don't have to uninstall the plugin. And I think this was one of the pain points that people were facing as well when it comes to updating the plugin from EBSCO-admin. So there's a lot of settings that you would have to enable beforehand within EBSCO-admin before those settings then come into and are cached in the plugin itself. So we've done a bit of research. We've made sure that the base URLs are correct. We've put some information in here. And if you do make updates, you will at least know what goes wrong because the instructions are here. And so because all the patches were gone, there wasn't much left for the setup tool to do. So it always included the version release information. So if you are on an older version of the plugin, it will tell you what the latest version of the plugin is and also what version of the plugin you are on. You have the ability to roll back and bring things back on forth again if you want to. What we've also done is we were playing around with customizability of the plugin through the plugin around the time of KohaCon17 last year. And so we decided to embed the plugin, or rather the app manager functionality in here itself, which basically means you can turn on apps through the plugin. The reason for this is because There is over 150 plus apps in the EBSCO App Store. That's just functionality sitting there available for you to use if you use the native EDS interface. And so we were trying to make sure that if you are a Koha user, how can you benefit from these apps as well? And so there's always a bit of work because the two systems and platforms are different. There is some effort required to make sure that the plugin does work on Koha. And so that's what we did. We were sort of playing around with this item match functionality around last year. I won't go into a lot of detail around what it does, but at a high level, it allows you to identify what search terms people are entering into the search system. And then if you find that the wrong search results are coming through, for example, library hours, people are typing library hours in their discovery service or in your catalog, for example. You don't have a catalog record for library hours, but you can implement this placard that says, I think I know what you're looking for, and so I'm going to direct you in the right direction. So we did some research around that. The other thing that we did was we spent quite a lot of time on analytics. So we tried to integrate the EDS native interface with Google Analytics, and we found that it was really successful across a large group of users, and we wanted to bring that across to Koha as well. Essentially what you get is what are the search terms people entered, what are some of the facets they turned on, what are some of the limiters they turned on, some popular tools within the details record, what happens, what are some of the search terms that don't lead to any results. So these are things that we've managed to bring on into the Koha plugin as well. So this is also available as part of that sort of process. So we need a good place to store all these apps because we're creating them and we need to sort of make it as available as possible. And so one of the logical things we thought we would do is create an apps folder. So in GitHub itself, there's about 6 apps now. There's one that's being beta tested, so I wouldn't bother with this. But whenever we go through the process of making an app compatible with Koha, what we will do is we will load it into the apps folder here. So here's just a couple of examples just to show you some of the ones that are working right now. Sorry, before that, we'll put in instructions. So when you go into the app, there's a README file. You will get instructions around how to actually go ahead and install the app. Most of the time is just copy the code from this JS file, put it into the apps manager, and change any specific IDs to customize it to whatever you need to do. That's pretty straightforward. So one of the apps that we have, and we've managed to actually plug that into the discovery interface and even Koha in general, is something called autocomplete. So what this does is as people type search terms in, it brings search results from the discovery interface and displays that here. So you can click on those and have those results appear. So it's not essentially an autocomplete dictionary, but it's essentially just doing sort of append search in discovery and bringing search results wherever it matches. So the probability of someone looking for something is better, at least with this functionality. The other thing we did was this aspect on collapsible facets by default. Now this was a debate we were having in terms of should we do this by default in the plugin or should we not do it, because some people liked it by closed, some people wanted it open by default. So the logical thing for us to do was turn it into an app. So if you install the app, it gives you the ability to collapse these by default like it is in EDS, unlike the way it's right now in Koha. And so as a result, what users can do is click on this and it'll expand or minimize. And again, the code's available, so you could go in and modify it exactly the way you want it. And so Gaten was talking about the possibility of using customization of Koha without having to change the core. And we've sort of followed the same principle, which is, can we customize the discovery interface, use all the apps that are there, and have that available for users without having to go and change the core of the plugin. And I think we're sort of starting to achieve that to some extent. So, I mean, the intent, at least, I guess it's sort of a message. I'm not sure how successful it's going to be, but if you do end up building apps for the plugin, and if firstly you end up using it, then we would definitely encourage you to share. The way, again, we would do this is create a fork for GitHub, and then put in a pull request. Whatever apps you end up doing would be open source and available for everyone else as well. So it's a little sort of thing happening on the side for discovery. So that's the first part of my presentation. All right, so I'm getting into the second one. Hopefully you all are with me and you found the information that I've shared so far interesting. Now, this is about specifically Full Text Finder. And so Full Text Finder includes a couple of tools. They include the knowledge base, holdings management, publication search service, and the link resolver. And I'm going to spend some time just going through these. But at a high level, you've got the publication finder. You've got publication discipline browse, which gives you some discipline functionality to limit your search results to. Title matching feature, so if you type in an exact title, it'll give you the exact search result. Link resolver, hopefully most of you are familiar with it, but it depends on what's available within your holdings and offers links for users to go and access it. And holdings management, which is the interface in the back end for an administrator, where you can go in and maintain a lot of this functionality from a publications, title matching, link resolver perspective. And so with the exact match feature that I talked about, this was sort of presented at KohaCon last year, so it's available, and I just wanted to sort of point out that it is there. There is a lot more detail that I go into. There is a video recording somewhere, so if you just Google EDS Koha, you will sort of get to it. And this allows you to search within a publication, so that this is actually results in discovery. And if there's links that the user wants to go to straight off to the publisher site, you can do that as well through this. The other aspect is the link resolver. Now, this has been used by a lot of libraries already. There isn't a specific integration of code that's required. This sort of link appears as you configure your discovery service. So if this record is considered as part of your collection, there is a link that appears that says Full Text Finder. So when a user clicks on this, they're taken to the Full Text Finder interface. Depending on the number of links that you've turned on, the user can click on one of these and then go straight to the full text. So they have the choice of where do they get this resource from, and then there's the coverage information on the side as well. With the browse functionality, now this is the native EDS interface, not in Koha. And so there is the browse by discipline function for Publication Finder, where users can pick one of these disciplines. There is the number of results that are associated based on your collection. And so when you click on these, it will return those specific results. So in this case, if I click on information technology, I'm presented with results that are associated with the discipline information technology. The disciplines function is not in the Koha plugin yet. It is on the roadmap, and so eventually we'll plug that in, but I just want to let you know what the discipline functionality really looks like. And so when you get search results for Publication Finder, so this is different to EDS. EDS is article level searching, whereas this one is journal book level searching. So when you do searches, it's only searching for the titles of your journals in this case. So let's look at Acta Informatica, for example. This is all configurable through the holdings management functionality. So this is available through EBSCO admin, so you would get a username password to do this. Once you've logged in, you get to the holdings management feature, which gives you the titles, the packages, and the vendors that are associated with your collection. And so what you can do here is it gives you autocomplete functionality, which is there. So if I was looking at, so this is an example of what I showed you before, Acta Informatica. And here you have the same search term being typed in partially. And what this does is gives you information in an autocomplete perspective. You can click on one of these, and it takes you to that specific record directly, which is there. and that's the front end. So just to make things relatable, I've shown the front end functionality and how this looks in the back end. So when you first look at this, you have all these providers that are available through the EBSCO knowledge base. And so this is what makes the holdings management functionality useful, because EBSCO takes care of a lot of these things in the background. So what you have to do is select the resource from where it's available. And so if I selected to just the selected items right now, I'm then presented only with the selected view. So you can see there's 2 Springer links in EBSCO admin, and in the front end, there are 2 Springer links. Hopefully this makes sense. It's really basic, but if anyone's interested in more information, do let me know. I'd be happy to answer more questions. The other advantage with ordering stuff through EBSCO is that these things will be turned on for you automatically. So recap so far, we've talked about holdings management, link resolver, title matching, and publication discipline browse, which is not in the Koha plugin yet, but everything else is. Now I'm going to go into publication finder, right? And this is an integration that we've managed to do in the back end, or rather in the front end of Koha. So previously, there was a little field code called JN journal title. Now this was a requirement that came up by the New Zealand customer that we built this for. They said they'd like to search for the journal titles. We didn't have the publication finder APIs available at the time, and so we added this functionality into the plugin, and what this did was it did a JN search, and so it would try and look for the field code JN, which wasn't that useful, but now that we've got the publication finder API functionality, we've repurposed that sort of limiter, and we're trying to do this softly just to not confuse users. If people are really looking for journal titles and their publications, then we can educate users to do this. And so what it does now is, if you remember the way Publication Finder returns search results, this is the Koha interface. You get the links here, you get the search within publication box, and you have all the facets on the left side as well. Now, if you wanted a more prominent way for users to search for journals, you may remember the apps functionality I showed you a while back. There's a good chance we could use that. So rather than having to play around with the core plugin functionality, we could use apps to make this journal link somewhere more prominent. The other thing that we added, so this was initially an app, and so I think the sort of process here was, look, it helps distinguish between discovery interface and the publication finder interface. So we added a browse by functionality here. So if you click on L, for example, it returns all the results by L. So it's just another way to distinguish the interface that you're in between publication finder and discovery. And so obviously this function is there. When you search here, it takes you back to the article level searching. The other thing we wanted to do is offer that continuity in the detailed record. So if I went into a journal and I still have the search, I still have all the links that are here, and the user can pretty much have a look at all this stuff. If I did a search for animal, for example, in here, what would happen is I would get search results. I would have an active facet that says limited to that journal, and these are all the results that are from that journal. So we're looking at source, laboratory animals, so that's all being plugged in and wired in as well. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview of the full text finder. 2 down, 1 to go. So this is just the third section of my presentation. Hopefully I'm going well for time. The third section is really just access management with OpenAthens specifically. And so since not a lot of you have heard about OpenAthens, I'm going to go into a bit of detail on this. Fundamentally, libraries desire to provide its users access to license information resources, but face several challenges due to complex security systems. So EBSCO host itself and the EBSCO system itself supports 9, 10 different authentication mechanisms. You can just imagine how many there are. And so one of the things that we're hoping to do is use an industry standard in the form of OpenAthens. Now, this looks like a vision statement or mission statement, so I'm going to try and read it exactly so I don't make a mistake. OpenAthens, which is a product from EduServe, is helping over 2,000 organizations in 46 countries enable access to hundreds of thousands of journals, databases, and ebooks for over 4 million end users. So it's a product that's stable, it's been around for a while, and it's definitely being used as well. And so at a high level, what is OpenAthens? So it's a username, password-based system for access to library resources, subscribers identification independent of IP, user categorization and statistics, I'll explain what that means, and provides anonymized user ID to publishers for personalization. And what is OpenAthens for? All access to library resources on network, remote or mobile, and organizations where IP authentication doesn't work. So if you don't have a static IP, this may be a good solution for you. And obviously to integrate with an organization's own single sign-on systems. You could use OpenAthens to do that as well. Now, this is a bit of a diagram. I'm going to try and simplify this as much as possible. Essentially, what's happening with OpenAthens is it's trying to remove barriers to knowledge. As people are trying to access the information that's on the other side, what they have to do is remember one username and password and then go and access the resource. Once they've logged into a browser session, they don't have to keep coming back and typing the username password again. So that's really the plan with OpenAthens and how this sort of integration works in general. What we did this past couple of months, probably last month itself, is when we launched the beta. It's been tested. It's live with one of our mutual customers now. But there is another GitHub project that's now available. And so if you do a Google search for Koha OpenAthens, you will be led to this GitHub page. Again, it's another plugin that you can use to integrate OpenAthens to Koha. So let me explain what this means. There are two ways of integrating or rather offering single sign-on. Either you connect to your local directory, LDAP, or you store all the usernames in OpenAthens. What this process is doing, or what this plugin is doing specifically, is it's using the Koha patron directory, and based on the login to Koha, it's then creating a session in OpenAthens, which means you don't have to create multiple username passwords. Users don't have to create multiple username passwords, and it's just the one that people want to use. And so this plugin's sort of up and running there. Because it's about authentication, the best type of authentication is the one that works in the background seamlessly and the users are unaware. So I don't have any fancy slides to demonstrate this, except for the fact that I'm on this Koha page right now, and I type in my login username and password, and what happens is that I'm taken to the login page, but there's a little message that appears on the top that says authenticating into OpenAthens, please wait. The moment the session is successful, what happens is that this message goes away and the user can just do whatever they want. And so logical thing to do is to go into discovery and start searching. So as you start searching, you start getting search results. And one of the things that happens is you get these links that go to a publisher platform. What we do is we call this term Athenizing a link. Once the link is Athenized, what it means is that the user will first go to OpenAthens. If a session is created, then they log in through that process without having to type in their username and password, and they just go ahead and access the resource. It's really as simple as that. Now, this is a full-on slide, but I'm not going to go into these little details. I'm just going to highlight what's there with OpenAthens and what's there with IP versus proxy-based authentication. And I'm going to just highlight what's available and what's not. These slides are available for you to take a look at, so later on down the line, if you're really interested, you can take a look at these. But what I do want to explain is that OpenAthens uses a global standard in authentication, which means when a user logs in to OpenAthens, the user details are sort of pushed off to the publisher. So the publisher knows how many people are actually accessing the resource versus IP, which is an anonymous user pool and you have no idea how many people have actually gone in because it's just the one link. And so this is really useful when it comes to granular statistics and all that information, which is one of the benefits really of OpenAthens. And so speaking about benefits, we're looking at can be implemented by librarians. So it's a simple interface that users can use. User account management tools for librarians can restrict access to categories of individuals, and I'll explain with that in the slide, and granular statistics as well. So when you're an administrator, the reason I'm showing you the administration screen is because there's nothing really to show from a user end perspective. It's all behind the scenes, all automatic, and that's the way we want it to be. But as an administrator, what you can do is go to OpenAthens.net, click on OpenAthens account administration. You will be given a username and password. And so what happens here is you log in with those credentials, and you're then taken to, let's say, a dashboard. And so the dashboard here gives you a quick overview of the number of users, what are some of the more popular resources, and also gives you easy links to some of the other resources. So if I click on summary here, it then gives me granular statistics on the resources that are being used up here as well. So here in this case, for example, there's 137,000, but there's 116,800. And this is what I mean by the granular statistics rather than just a high-level average. In addition, you get that whole aspect of per month access as well at the individual resource level. So really useful when it comes to justifying the sort of return on investment for some of the resources that people subscribe to. The other advantage of OpenAthens is because it is through SAML authentication and you know who the user is that is authenticated. What an administrator can do is they can create groups, right? So in those groups, they can assign users. So there's 375 there, 2 there, 5 there. And what are these 2 supposed to access? And what are these 5 supposed to access? And what are these 375 supposed to access? Now, I'm guessing you have some people that use your library that should not be allowed access to specific resources. This is where that sort of functionality, or let's say availability to do that, becomes really useful. And you can do all of this through just the administrative interface in the back end here. In addition, there's tons of integration options. So you can integrate with your LDAP, your Active Directory, ADFS, etc. And one of the other advantages of implementing OpenAthens is that your library resources now become part of your security system, which means the IT team that looks after your security could potentially be managing all this stuff for you instead of you having to take on that burden. And so this is just what appears when it comes to setting up what I would call a connection. So you've got LDAP, SAML, Circe, Dynix, ADFS. What's really important here for Koha is the API. And so the connector that we built is the API connector, and that's what we use in Koha for the plugin. So like I said, it's really, it is essentially just a plugin again. You could go to GitHub, download the plugin, upload it, turn it on, and that's it really. You don't have to do anything else. What you do have to do then is go into the back end and complete this form. So you've got the connection URL, OA, API key, connection ID, URLs, etc. And this is all available in the OpenAthens backend, which is through the entity and the scope. So you pick the Koha API connection. You could use your OpenAthens to do multiple connections if you wanted to, but in this case, it's just the Koha API. Copy this information from there. The other thing this sort of authentication allows you to do is identify what kind of data for the patron goes to OpenAthens. So this is your patron information in Koha. And so when you create sort of a connection with authentication systems, either there's legal requirements for certain information to be available, or you'd like to use this information, for example, branch code, to determine which users get access to which resource. And so in the back end, there is, of the plugin, there is the list of all the borrower fields. You would not turn all of these on. You have the ability to pick the ones that you want and then save. Like the EDS plugin, you can also enable or disable the system yes, no here, and then click on Save Configuration. And so that sort of allows you to turn on or turn off OpenAthens authentication just as easily. Now, once you've created the integration and the connections, what you have to do, especially with the data that's being pushed out from Koha into OpenAthens, is the mapping. Because OpenAthens has its own set of fields which you can specify and set yourself. Koha has its own set of fields. They need to map or talk to each other. And the way to do that is through the attributes tab, where you specify this field needs to map in OpenAthens to that field in Koha. And it's really a one-time thing. Once you've set it up, the chances are this really does not need to change unless something changes drastically. So this, again, I would probably say is quite a simple functionality. So I'm not going to explain this workflow because it looks a bit complicated. You just have to look at this. Koha 2 resource. If I have authenticated into Koha, because I have OpenAthens installed, I can access the resource. It's as simple as that. And again, resource to Koha to resource. Again, I won't go into the explanation of it. I just want to point out that this is a smiley face. We want smiley faces when it comes to authentication. And so again, if a user goes to the resource directly but has not authenticated into Koha, the resource will point the user to Koha. They will log into Koha, and then the plugin will know where they came from and redirect them back to that resource. So again, we've simplified a lot of this workflow and built that into the plugin. So I didn't have this slide till today, and this was really influenced by the future of Koha discussion. I think a lot of what Paul shared. So this again is my personal opinion than anything else. I'd probably be bold enough to say that the future of Koha is now, rather than a couple of years away, with EDS, Full Text Finder, OpenAthens, and really the conclusion sort of is we're better together. So that's my time, folks. Before I open for questions, I just want to thank you all for being really patient and listening to me. I got the 5-minute sort of warning, but I'm all done. And I just wanted to also say that we've got people here from EBSCO. I welcome you to sort of approach our stand as well if you have any questions. Also, if you want to talk to us about a little more detail, we're all available here. Plus, we've got contact details of our team here as well. Thanks so much for your time, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. So the floor is now open.